On the 24th of December 1971, Juliana Kupka and 91 other passengers are boarding a flight in Lima, Peru. The flight is taking them to Pucallpa, so all the people on board can go and spend Christmas with their families. She sits down next to the window on seat number 19F towards the back of the plane. It's a row of 3 with her mother sitting next to her and a man sitting next to the aisle. They all fasten their seatbelts and the plane takes off. And everything is calm at first. But as the plane reaches cruising altitude, Juliana notices something strange out of the window. It's getting dark, even though it's during the day. The hugely ominous and dark storm surrounds the plane and suffocates all daylight. The passengers start murmuring nervously and then gasp as lightning flashes start. And violent turbulence begins, shaking the whole plane left and right, up and down. It's lurching all over the place. Luggage is falling out from the overhead racks and bashing onto people's heads. People are panicking and shrieking and crying. And then, out of the window, Juliana sees a bright flash of light strike the right wing of the plane. Lightning has struck the engine. Juliana's mother turns to her and calmly says, "Now it's all over." The plane lurches violently downwards and goes into a nosedive. The engines are roaring and screeching. Everybody's screaming and shouting and crying in terror. And then, all of a sudden, Juliana is outside of the plane. She's still strapped to the row of 3 seats, but now she's upside down and she's on her own and she's hurtling towards the ground as the row of seats spins around and around. Her seatbelt is tightened so fast she can't breathe and she loses consciousness. She briefly comes to see the terrifying sight of the jungle canopy fast approaching as she goes into it head first. She regains consciousness and it's light again. It's the next day and she's badly concussed. One eye is forced shut through bruising and through another she can only see through a tiny slit. She has a wound on her collarbone where it's been snapped. She also has a wound on her arm and a bad 2-inch deep wound on her calf. She repeatedly calls out for her mother and any sign of life, but there's no reply, just the sound of the jungle. Slowly, she begins exploring the area, moving in wider circles from her row of seats. She's able to stay alive by drinking what little water she can that's stored on the plants in the jungle. As she ventures ever further away from that starting point, she's very careful to leave marks so that she can make her way back if she needs to and not get lost. Each night she finds either a slope or a tree to rest her back on so she's protected and cannot be attacked from behind. Each night it would either rain torrentially, which felt like needles piercing her skin, or if it wasn't raining, she'd be eaten alive by a swarm of mosquitoes. One day she woke up and she heard trickling water and she followed the sound and she found a tiny stream, and she realized if she can follow this stream it will get to a larger stream and then to a river and then hopefully to civilization and people. After 3 days of following this stream, she encountered the burnt out engine of the aeroplane, the same engine that she'd seen be struck by lightning when she was on the plane. She feels she might be getting closer to the main crash site, and that's confirmed the next day when she hears the unmistakable sound of vultures screeching up above. She knows there will only be vultures if there's rotten flesh to feed on, and sure enough, she rounds the next corner and is horrified by what she sees. It looks like an upturned couch or sofa, but as she gets closer, she realizes it's another row of 3 seats, except this time it's been rammed into the ground 3 foot deep, and all 3 passengers are still strapped to the seats, and they've been drilled into the ground head first, and only their feet are sticking out. Her first thought, still confused because of the concussion, is that one of these passengers could be her mother, even though that couldn't be possible because she was sat next to her on the plane. but she gets a stick and pokes the feet of the passengers to see if they look like her mother's feet. She feels relieved when she doesn't recognize any of the feet of the passengers, but also disgusted and ashamed of what she just did. She begins searching the area for anything that she could use to stay alive longer. She comes across a Peruvian Christmas cake, but it's caked in mud and it's completely sodden with the rain. She tries it, but it tastes disgusting and she throws it away. But then she finds a bag of candy, which she keeps and will prove to be a lifeline. Each day she continues on, following the course of the stream, and each day she sees and hears planes circling above, the search party desperately looking for her and any other survivors. But the jungle canopy is so thick with foliage and leaves, they won't be able to see through. She can see them, but they can't see her. The search is abandoned and the planes stop. Juliana now knew she had to get out of there on her own, but her arm wound had been infected by maggots that had burrowed deep into her flesh, and she was worried she'd get blood poisoning or even lose her arm completely. The stream had now widened into a river, and she spent many days either swimming or just drifting down this river, hoping to find somebody, hoping to survive. On day 10, Juliana is almost reaching the end of her will to live, and she's resting on a sandbank when out of the corner of her eye, she spies something up ahead. It looks like a boat, but she's not sure. Am I hallucinating? Is this real? She walks slowly over to the boat and touches it, and sure enough, it is real. It's a physical, actual boat. She looks around for signs of life. Her heart begins pumping faster. Adrenaline starts surging. Maybe this is it. Maybe I can get rescued. There's nobody around, but there is a path from the boat up a steep riverbank to a small hut. By this point, she's so exhausted she can't walk, so she has to crawl and pull herself up this steep 9-foot tall riverbank. It takes hours. Eventually she gets to the top and drags herself to this hut. There is no sign of life, nobody there, but she uses a tarpaulin on the porch and wraps it around herself and goes to sleep. The next morning, 3 men who own the boat and the hut find Juliana, and they're shocked by her appearance. They see the terrible state of the wound on her arm and pour gasoline on it to evict and scrape out the maggots. The men carefully help her onto the boat for a 12-hour journey down the river to a landing strip, because ironically, the only way to get to the nearest hospital is by plane. Her wounds are treated at the hospital, and then she leads the search party back to the crash site to help recover the bodies of everyone else who died. But the question is, how did she survive? Juliana puts it down to 3 factors. Number 1, the fact the row of 3 seats was spinning around like a helicopter blade that slowed her descent. Number 2, the thick jungle canopy and leaves which helped break her fall. And number 3, the strong uplift of air during a thunderstorm.